Welcome ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dychronic here on this Destiny 2 video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Xur's location. My recommendations is random rolls for April 30th, 2021. You can find him in his regular location in the tower, so just make your way into the top left section of the hangar, and you can find him right here on the precipice of this little landing. This is a high overview in case this is all you wanted. First up, for the weapon today, we have the Arbalest, the only special ammo linear fusion rifle and the only kinetic linear fusion rifle in the game. First and foremost, if you did not know, Bungie did mention in a recent TWAB that they will be buffing linear fusion rifles across the board. 15% more precision damage and 20% more reserves. I agree with both of these changes, but I wish that the precision damage was a lot more. Considering that the precision damage is already like 3 to 4 times multiplier, honestly, I could see it being easily from 6 to 8 times and still not beating out swords, considering that you have to be landing precision shots. But I'm a bit cuckoo. Honestly, I didn't think the rockets were going to be that crazy with 30%, and they're pretty crazy. And if you've never heard of it, it fires slugs that cause massive damage to elemental shields of enemy combatants, which means a kinetic weapon doing more damage to elemental shields in PvE. And honestly, it has great synergy with the other perk, Disruption Break, where breaking an enemy shield with this weapon makes them more vulnerable to kinetic damage, which this is a kinetic weapon, so good against shields, and good after you pop the shields. However, in regular play, I find that there's a lot of other options that do what this does better. For example, Ariana's Vow. Very similar aim assistance, very similar range, with a lot more options with champion rounds, more DPS, and honestly just a bit more comfortable from what I've seen. And obviously you have all the other options like slug shotguns, Wither Horde, that are just doing better than this exotic. In the PvP side of things, it's basically a slower sniper. It does handle better at close range and better aim assistance, but snipers do shoot a lot faster and you can usually get out of their way in time. Up next we have the Hunter exotic, one of my favorite looking exotics in the game. Well, when you have a hood on it, it looks less bald. If you've never heard of it, it increases the duration of any invisibility effects, and this includes your melee, your dodge, Rat King, anybody else making you invisible, and your melee recharges faster while you're invisible. So it allows you to be invisible for around twice as long with any of your effects, which is actually really good for solo play or for team medic play. Basically an alternative to the 6 Coyote or the Omnioculus if you wanted to use this. However, I find that 6 Coyote is going to be a bit more consistent because it's dependent on your dodge, which charges a lot faster, and it's double dodge, so you can actually break out of your invisibility faster, where this one you want to be invisible for as long as possible, which is sometimes a little boring. And in PvP, it's, it doesn't really matter that much. As far as the roll goes, total stats 65 is really good. The distribution you want to see is mobility, recovery, and strength, which is pretty good across the board, so I'd say this is a really good roll for an exotic that's probably top 15. Up next, for the Titan exotic, we have the MK44 Stand-Aside. It's basically a poor man's version of the insurmountable skull fort that is somewhat universal to the light elements. If you've never heard of it, it grants an overshield while sprinting at full health with any of the shoulder charge abilities. Now you have to keep in mind, this is at full sprint, at full health to get around 100 hit points of an overshield, which will allow you to survive 3 shots from a 120 hand cannon in PvP, but not much more than that, and you will have to be sprinting, which means that you will not be able to raise your gun until you finish. And the other part of it is that hits with these abilities recharge half of your melee energy. So again, a poor man's insurmountable skull fort. And the biggest issue with this is that there's no situation that I would want to use it. It's not unique or good at anything in particular. Unless you don't have any other option, I'd rather use other options. For Arc, Insurmountable Skull Fort for healing and your full melee. For Solar, Hellfire Heart for 2 to 4 times recharge speed on your melee and your grenade. For Void, honestly, if you're going to be using the Shield Bash, I would honestly go with Doomfang, maybe even Ursa's, Helmsame 14, Synthoceps, Lion Rampants. There's just so many different options I'd rather use. Honestly, I'd rather use One-Eyed Mask in PvE. You get healing, and honestly very underrated because people die a lot. You want to survive. This one doesn't really offer much. The shield doesn't last very long. You have to be at full health and full sprint to have it work. You have to be using one of these shoulder charges of those particular subclasses. It just doesn't feel great. And finally, the roll is also not great. Resilience, discipline, not really great synergy. You want mobility, strength, even not that great. And finally, for the Warlock exotic, we have the Astrocyte Verse. Honestly, one of those high skill floor, high skill ceiling exotics that could do really, really well for you if you get used to it. If you've never heard of it, it blinks further and more frequently, so you have to be Void Blink, and your weapons ready quickly out of Blink and radar remains up, basically solving every single issue you have with Blink. Now, from what I hear, or from what I remember, it's not as strong as the original Blink back when D1 first started, but obviously it did get nerfed many times since then, so it is currently more powerful, or at least this exotic is currently more powerful than Destiny 1 Blink. Keeping in mind that most of the blinkers were hunters, or at least preferred to be on hunters, So that's another downside, on top of it requiring you to be void, which is also not that strong in PvP, where this particular exotic shines. Shrines! It's where it shines! Final answer. As far as the stats go, actually kind of okay. The total stats are not great at 60, but the distribution of mobility, recovery, and strength are pretty good synergies for this exotic. However, there are better options. Outside of that, make sure you're picking up your exotic cipher quest. If you don't know Xur, every single week he'll give you an exotic cipher quest that'll give you a free exotic cipher by doing strikes, crucible, gambit, and the higher level activities. This can be then used on the exotic archive to get those exotics from the past. I recommend Ariana's Vow and Witherward, they're amazing. Or you could alternatively spend it on an exotic engram, which I would also recommend if you're very new to the game, you want to get exotics you've never received before. This is guaranteed to give you one. Or if you're very much in the end game, if you've got tens of thousands of legendary shards, this will guarantee you an exotic with a high stat roll, which I'm full because I've got a metric shit ton of, Umbral engrams just clogging my inventory. And of course, like to give a big shout out to my patrons on Patreon for helping me make this channel possible. Specifically, I want to give a big thank you to Medibuju, Mom Dad, Charles Williams, Dr. Strange, Joe Smith, Monday, Natalie Hoppins, Steve Optimus, Justin Rare, Raymond Shulman, Una Panther, Cole Sherman, Casey Reagan for the support on Patreon. And of course, everyone still watching the video, thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a great day. Oh, and I guess there's still a giveaway going on right now on my channel, on my Discord, my Twitter, my YouTube. There's plenty of links to it. Gleam, Astro Blue, you'll see it.